Welcome. I'm Doug, and this is Dying to Retire, a podcast on retirement and then some. If you've been here before, you may have noticed things look a little different. I've been running this show as an audio version, mostly of my YouTube channel. Same episodes, same content, just audio. That's changing going forward. This feed is on its own content made for this format. The old YouTube audio versions are coming down, but what stays is everything I made here original just for this channel. I'll still be covering my retirement, the house being built in Guatemala, the residency process, and all of that. I'm still over there on YouTube, Dying to Retire. And if you must see the face that's made for radio, just go over there. There will be some crossover, but if you want the full experience, unfiltered and explicit, this is where it lives. All right, let's get started. I just wanted to give you guys a little breakdown of my last trip when I went to Guatemala to take a look at the property being built. And as I said before in another episode, it is about 2 months behind, but hopefully it'll be done in 2 months, right? Give or take. When I did the trip down to Guatemala, I took my niece this time around. Niece Danielle, but when she's in Guatemala, she's known as Christina. One of those two name things. It's kind of interesting. Many people are known that way, known by their middle names. My wife is not. She goes by her first name, not her middle name when she's down there. But a lot of people go by their middle name or baptism name in Guatemala. A lot of the women do, because we got cousins, primas, sorry, have like 3 different names. And you need a freaking legend, spreadsheet, whatever, link analysis to be able to figure out who's all who. But getting back to the trip. So we went down there. It was a little bit before Easter because I had to get stuff done when I went down there, and I'll talk about that in another episode. But what was really important was when we arrived down in Guatemala, we were staying at my in-laws' house, the family home there in Zona Dos, and it's an older home. Been there for a while. It's an old part of the city. And my niece was with us there. We arrived early in the morning, got in there, and she got to see, they have decent living standards, but it's not as best as it could be. So she got to experience what it's like to see a house that doesn't have complete running water, at least on the second floor. The first floor has it. There's something wrong with the plumbing. It's a broken water pump issue that they refused to keep fixing, even though I was the mule taking the money down to get it fixed. But I digress. Again, yes, it irritates the shit out of me. However, we were down there. So then we went to the next day, we went down to Antigua from Guatemala City. It took about 2 hours to drive down there. We get down there and we checked in the hotel somewhat. Then we headed off to look at the property because my real estate agent took us out there to look at the construction and give us a little tour of the site because I wanted my niece to see it, because the ultimate plan was for during the summers for her son, who is now 10, who'll be 11 by next summer when the house is fully ready, furnished, should be furnished. Hopefully I'm able to get everything by then, and as well as have obtained a car or purchased a car and got my local driver's license since I am now a resident. So that was the plan. So we went down, looked at the construction. She was really happy with the construction. But was the most important thing was she was really, really impressed with the gated community that I selected to have the home built. And we're going around and she's looking at it. And she's like, good Lord, this is like a nice country club or a really nice spa hotel. The ones that you go to that you could go at the beach, but it's the hotel at the beach, but you never go to the beach because the hotel is just too damn nice. That's the scenario here. Yes, paying through the nose up front. I'll be honest on that one. But she's going around and she's looking at it, and we eventually stopped and we had lunch there with the real estate agent as well as her assistant. We're looking around. We did the tour. We saw the game room. We saw the fitness center. We saw the business center, which hopefully I'll be able to record a lot of my radio shows, podcast here for the audio only, but as well as potential to do the filming for my YouTube channel there. So I'll be able to do a lot of stuff there. It's not really utilized during the week. And that's one thing that my niece was noticing was we were there during the work week. Not a lot of people were there. And like I've said before, during the work week, 70% of the homeowners, the people who live in the homes, are actually in their homes in Guatemala City or the surrounding area. They are not there at the gated community outside of Antigua. This is more the weekend homes for them or the holiday homes for these people. So yeah, it has a lot of people with money in it. That's fine. But what that allows is the pool, which is a beautiful pool, is bam, 70% of the people aren't there. So no one was there at the pool. No one was there at the restaurant when we were there. I think it was a Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday when we were walking around in there. All right, it was a Thursday. So we're doing all of that. It was perfectly fine. It's great. And my niece is looking around and she's like, this is really, really nice place. At the end of this time, and by the time we got back home, not back home, back to the house in Guatemala City the next day, because we did do a small tour of Antigua, the city proper. My niece were recapping it. And like I said, the original plan was for her son to come down in the summers, and that's still in play. But she got to the point where she's like, screw this shit. Doug, it's a 4-hour flight from DC to here. If you can pick me up at the airport for a long weekend, when I come down here, pick me up, bring me to down here. I'll stay for the weekend, even without my son, just to decompress. And then you can take me back to the airport and she'll fly home on her own. And she was like, that's how simple it is. And she realized, and I know right now the gas prices are up, so the airline tickets are up. Hopefully this shall pass. Hopefully this shall pass. And she was, thinking about it. She's like, this is really cool. So at the end of the day, what was originally the plan for the grandnephew to come and spend some summertime down there, get to know a little about one part of his heritage, take some Spanish classes while I'm down there taking Spanish classes. I'll have someone come in or we can go in there. There'll be lots of things for us to do. Take him around, like I said, be a cool summer, 2 weeks or whatever for him. But my niece is like, mm-mm, I'm coming down too. He can stay with his grandma. He can stay with family. I'm coming down to decompress. I'll sit by the pool because it was wild. Tell you about the pool. You could sit there. It had a bar. If you were sitting further away from the bar in the pool areas, it had little buzzers, silent buzzers. You could push it. The waiter would come up and see what you needed. He'd get your drink and or take your order, go back, get it ready, and bring it to you. It was like that nice. You could be ordering a drink, or you could have been ordering some food, A or B. They'll do both. So, because it has a restaurant, like I said, she was just amazed at it. She's like, "This is what living should be." It makes me happy to understand that this is what I selected. This is the area I selected. So, hopefully, everything's going right. But I thought you'd be interested, or that would be an interesting story for you guys. All right. I'm going to talk about a thing I like to call closing the bank of mom and dad. Now, the bank of mom and dad goes by many names. It's also called the bank of Tia and Tio, the bank of Grammy and Grampy. But at the end of the day, it is the bank where, as a retiree or soon to be retiree adult, you and I, your children still are coming to you for money and you're still giving money up. And it started out with good intentions. Excuse me. It started out with good intentions per se, right? Because when our kids 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when we were in the middle of our workforce, we had our young children. They had reached the age of 18. They were entering the workforce or they were going to school unless they went into the military. We started helping the kids with the basics, such as helping with the rent, helping with their phone bill. Because admit, how many parents still have their kids' phones on their family plans? You're covering all their phone expenses, right? They don't have it. You get them the brand new phones. Sometimes people split it. I'll pay the phone bill, but you have to buy your new phone. But you also help them with the car insurance. And at that time, when they're starting off, a little money for food, right? But that became an habit and we continued it on all through their adult life. And even when they had children, got married on their own, had their own children, or had children without getting married, that's the standard. All of that stuff was going on. So that was a habit that the bank of mom and dad or parents began to do because it was expected of them, because that's what kids took it to. It became an expectation by their children, their adult children, right? And the reason why I'm putting on this, we need to close the bank of mom and dad, because if you're going to enjoy your retirement, You need to close the bank of mom and dad, the bank of TNT, or the bank of Grandma and Grampy as much as possible. Now, there's multiple ways to look at it. You can just go cold turkey, or you can slowly wean them off for emergencies only. Now, there's also a passage, and I'm not a big Bible thumper person. There's a passage in the Bible, if you loan someone money, if you get half of it back, be happy. Well, that's how you're going to have to look at it when you're loaning to your children, you're giving money to your children, because if it affects your quality of life in retirement, you need to stop it. I don't care who you are, you need to stop it. Unless you're Bill Gates, you need to stop that shit. And the thing is, you don't have time to make that money. You cannot recover it back. You don't have income other than your retirement income. Social Security only will go so far. Your pension will only go so far. Once you lose that money, you don't get it back. You cannot go out and work again, because doing that, if you're retired, yes, you can. I should rephrase this. Yes, you can. But that means changing your quality of life. You're no longer enjoying retirement. Did you have to go eat noodles and rice versus having a regular dinner? This is affecting, you can't go take your trip because your young child needed a new car. And I've seen that. I've heard the stories about it. Or, oh, I have to pay for he and his wife. They need a new addition on their house. So I'm going to give them some money. It's like an early inheritance. That shit never occurred back in the day, 100 years ago. Shit like that never occurred. No one stood around waiting for inheritance and stuff like that. It only happened for the super duper wealthy. Wasn't until the 1940s and 50s that pensions even came along, and that lasted only like 30 years because pensions are going by the wayside and people are told to put money in 401s. And look at our Social Security, that shit's about to all get thrown out because all the fraud, waste, and corruption, and no one's getting a handle on that because the only way they want to take it, the only way the politicians want to fix it is basically screwing you and I over. So that's what I'm talking about, the bank of mom and dad. There's a book that I don't agree with everything in the book, but it's called Die with Zero. And that's what we need to look at things. You need to spend your inheritance, not your inheritance. You need to spend your money as best as possible. And when you die, whatever's left goes to your kids, but don't screw your quality of life over. Because 100 years ago, people were not getting big inheritances. They weren't getting any of that shit. Didn't happen. You'd be like if you got a gold watch and a couple coins, gold coins or something on that, or silver coins, and a toolbox. Your dad's really well kept tools. And for women, what they get, linen, some china, maybe some crystal and stuff. But no, we turned into a very consumer driven society, totally screwing everything up. But what I'm trying to say here, the bank of mom and dad, and I did a YouTube video on this. If you want to see the whole thing, go watch it. It's like 13, 14 minutes long. It's in there and I'm going out there. If this affects you, look at it. I had a lot of people get mad at me. So take a look at the being there. You need to shut it down. You need to have your kids take responsibility for their own adulthood. There is a meme, I can't show it in here because this is the audio of the podcast. You know that old meme, please don't feed the animals because this teaches them not to hunt and survive on their own. The same thing applies with our younger generation. If we keep taking care of them, they will never be able to survive on their own. And you will have a shitty retirement, and we don't want that. Next up, all right, moving on. Let's start talking about this section in the show. I call it retirement or boomer reality. And I'm going to first start this off is not sure how you guys are. Just let me know. But I hate it when I start reading online or in magazines or anything like that, articles that are geared for us retired people or for people getting ready to retire that gives current cost of living numbers, the data, then immediately follows with the stupid bullshit. If you started saving at the age of 20, this much down each month, you would be here. Great. But what exactly is a 60-year-old supposed to do with that information now? Build a fucking time machine? It's useless data for the actual audience reading the article. So I'm not sure how much you guys have seen on this stuff, how you feel on it. Let me know. Send me an email on it. I'd love to hear it. So, but here goes. Now, Fox News and perusing, and I saw this on the Fox News website. What it was is Money Lion, that's Lion, Money Lion, a financial technology company, analyzed the cost of a comfortable retirement in each of the 50 states by factoring in the average household expenses. Think Social Security income, the whole 9 yards. They put it all together. So, in short, some analysts over at Moneyline had a lot of time on their hands because they're probably waiting for his or her H-1B replacement to show up. You know, the one that they're going to have to train because that H-1B replacement's degrees are fake as shit, right? Okay, but I digress. That's a whole nother episode. Okay. But the first number when they were lining this all up is I'm not gonna go through them all. I'm not gonna go through all 50 states. I'm gonna go through the 2 highest, the middle of the road, and I'm gonna give you what the lowest was, and you probably can guess a little bit on. So the first number that they gave is just the number you need the cost just to exist. That's the roof over your head, that's food, that's utilities, that's limited health care. You're not suffering, but you're not living altogether either. It's just you're alive. And the article labeled that as the necessities because that's what it is. It's the necessities to live on. The second number, dollar number that they provided is the cost you needed, the amount of money you needed to actually enjoy it. You know, dinners out, travel, hobbies, breathing room. And this number was labeled living comfortable. And this is all how much money you need to bring in each year. So think about it 1 second. I got to take a swig of soda because it's dry in my little dungeon down here. So, so, so that's living comfortable. So you guys got my drift. So let's get going. Okay, the worst state, which pretty much everyone knows who's ever looked at retirement, is Hawaii. So just for the bare minimum in Hawaii, and I had a lot of friends back in the day used to be stationed there, and it was expensive, all hell back in the 80s. So imagine what it is going to be now today. So just to live there, it costs a little bit over $90,000. That's just the basic necessities. To live comfortably, because everything is so expensive, like I just mentioned, it was double that, over $181,000 per year, just to freaking live comfortably. Next on the worst offenders was California, one of the most socialist states we have. I don't think it really should be considered part of the union, but that's just me. It required a minimum of 73,000, a little bit over $73,000 per year just for the basic necessities, and that's probably living in a shithole. And then for apartment or condo or something, and you required a minimum of $121,000 to live comfortably. And let me preface this, both of these things, you're probably gonna be living in not the most nicest locations, because these aren't gonna be the Ritz. These aren't gonna be nice country club areas. These are just gonna be areas where you can afford, kinda like some areas here in the Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland. It's not the Potomac, it's the outer outskirts of it. It's nice, but it's not super nice. Yeah, you're gonna have crime in the area and all that stuff. So that's that. So the middle of the road areas was I'm gonna give you Florida, because everyone's getting up and moving to Florida apparently, was to live the necessities was a little bit over, just slight over $44,000 per year. To live comfortably was double that, $88,000 a year for Florida. So that means you could go out on occasion, enjoy a dinner out and stuff like that, not have steak probably, have chicken, but that's what it was. And then another middle of the road, they used Texas and Tennessee. They both came around a little bit over $38,000 per year for the necessities. Again, not quite a trailer home. Oklahoma was in this area too. I don't have the numbers for that one. I have a brother out there. He does not live in a trailer home, but I joke with him about it because he's in Tornado Alley and they just love trailer homes. So it's a little bit over $38,000 just to live the necessities, but $76,000 to live a comfortable life. That means going out. It means the cost of living going out and having a dinner isn't like the freaking Socialist Republic of Montgomery County, Maryland here, which they're still demanding tips, want 20% tips. But the minimum wage for waiters and stuff like that is what, 15, 16, going up to 18 to $20 an hour? It's ridiculous. They're making ridiculous amounts of money and then demanding tips. But that's another one. Do you guys tip? Let me know, because if you're in a county or a state that does the minimum wage, do you tip? And I know I just digress, but love to hear that one. So those are your middle of roads. Now, the best state that they had for people to retire in for their money was West Virginia. Now, hear me out. Minimum standard, the necessities was just a little bit over $29,000. Living comfortable was a little bit over $58,000 per year. And this is what I'm going to say, because I have a niece up there. I have a brother-in-law who lives up there. They work, I think, in Maryland, the other one in Virginia. But they pay taxes to West Virginia because they're in this metropolitan area. The taxes are a whole lot less. The cost of living up there is a shit ton less than here in Montgomery County. So they actually enjoy living up there, though it is a hell of a commute to where they have to go to each of their respective jobs. So there's a good thing. However, the more stuff is being built up in West Virginia, so they got everything everyone else has. So if you want your movie theater, you want your little outlet mall, not out, well, they do have an outlet mall. But if you want to be able to drive an hour down and you're going to the big mall in like Leesburg, not Leesburg, what's the Tyson Corner Mall and stuff like that, you could do it. So don't knock it, but it's cheaper. But that's what, $29,000 to live on just necessities, just a little bit under $60,000 to live a decent life, be able to go out a few times, live very comfortably. That's not bad. But this is the button. This is the purpose of the radio show here, right? The podcast. This is why so many Americans, and I don't care what side of the political aisle you are on, are looking at and exploring expat life to live abroad. Not because they hate America, though there are several that do that hate America. Freaking liberals. Liberals. Let me just make sure I enunciate that one correctly. But because they have run the numbers and they've realized retirement in parts of the US is starting to look financially unrealistic. You cannot afford to live in most of the United States. I'm going to give Maryland a perfect example. They keep raising the taxes. They realize everyone's leaving. So to make up for it, they raise the taxes again or the fees and everything. New York State, California, they're all doing that because we're paying for everyone's charity work and everything like that. So socialism run amok. That's all they do. I think it was Margaret Thatcher once said, sooner or later, the problem with socialism is sooner or later they run out of someone else's money. And that's what's happening in different states right now. That's why you see a lot of the flights. But again, that's why a lot of us have began, or one of the reasons why we're looking at retiring abroad. So this gets back wrapped around on the axle because I know I went off a little bit there. This is why the expat conversation specific to the affordability is growing in my aspects, in my optics, because retirees are discovering there is a difference between surviving somewhere and actually living a life somewhere. Is this you? Is this the reasons you are thinking about moving abroad in retirement? Let me know. Now, for one of my favorite parts, just a boomer bitching, I came across this article in, what is it, the UK Daily Mail, and talk about the pseudoscience. This is a article written by, after doing some research, a very feminist young woman, journalist who's only been around for like 10 years. And the article is a good excuse to take the bins out. Sex lives improve when the men do their share of the housework. That actually how is the article is. And I'm going to jump into the comments first. And it's a lot of men commenting. It goes, believe me, it doesn't. No wife, happy life. In this case, do they stop faking it? Uh, their sex lives also improve when they go back to being single. That's for the men. Complete rubbish. Seriously, who gets paid to waste their lives researching and writing this guff? That's pretty much, and I think they're all spot on. But let me start talking to you about what this article actually was trying to lay out. The study's headline, it claims that the most effective aphrodisiac for women isn't candlelight dinners or flowers. It's watching their partner take out the trash, arguing that evenly divided housework drives higher female libido in heterosexual relationships. And actually, they were saying it in all relationships. And later on, they started covering a little bit more hetero. They just said couples first when they were talking about the studies. And then they start talking about heterosexual later, and they don't frame it exactly like that. The framework leans heavily on what they call benevolent sexism, which is an academic term for men and women, men who open doors, pays bills, protects their family. They somehow made what being a man to be considered a form of sexism. So right off the bat, the article's got some issues in my mind. Now, the study never takes into account who pays the mortgage, who mows the lawn, who fixes the car, who handles any home repair, fixing the IT, the router at the house. They don't define household contribution. They exclusively look at it through the female coded task optics, completely ignoring the other half of running a home entirely. So their version, what's fair share or equity home doing the chores, is very skewed and ill defined in both the study and the lady's article that wrote this. So what's even funnier in this article, and go ahead and take a read, put the link in the description, but it was really saying, oh, you take out the garbage bins and do more of the work, that will find you more sexy. But there's a huge caveat, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Buried in their own findings is the admission that women who embrace traditional gender roles, the chore desired link completely disappears. In fact, him doing the what the women consider women's housework completely disappears. That part says, no, I don't want him doing it. So in traditional gender roles, man, woman, this shit is bunk. This article totally means nothing in regular gender roles. So this boss bitch, I'm a babe, if like that, yeah, it ruins her libido because she is a misandrist and cannot boss around the man. But in traditional roles, she takes pride in being the woman, the caretaker of the home. So this was kind of funny. And in fact, in some reporting, some cases of the study, when the women had their more traditional roles, they actually had stronger desires for their husband when they did their own housework. This completely guts the paper and the news article's central argument. And that's where, again, this is perpetrating as science, and it's not, right? The researchers, and I was going back in the article a little bit into the research paper, explicitly framed declining female desire as a structural problem with man-woman couples specifically, not individual relationships. So they basically said this is really the fault of heterosexual couples, not homosexual couples or other alternative lifestyle couples. So this was again, it was not really about talking about chores. It was really a critique on traditional heterosexual marriage. So they tried to dress it up in a lab coat, but it was just full of bullshit. Okay. So, hey, I'm wearing a lab coat. I got a clipboard. I'm doing a study. No, it was pseudoscience. The whole fucking thing, excuse my French, is pseudoscience. Now, Daily Mail also buried, or the author of this article also buried the sentence that blew up their own thesis three quarters down into the article because the honest headline said, like I said, traditional heterosexual couples report satisfying sex lives. Does not serve the agenda of the article's title. Again, they're pushing pseudoscience and trying to get young men and women to read this and go, oh, supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to cut my nuts off and go do something else. And they're still not taking into account everything the man does around the house, including does he pay the bills? Does he take the car to the shop or do the oil himself? Does he mow the lawn? Does he do all the yard work? Oh, that's not household work. That's different. Yeah, bullshit, bitch. So that's what gets me mad on this because this is what the lady did in the article. The other part in there, again, where they showed their hand, and the writer showed their hand, is it apparently pushed the feminist agenda of strong, independent women and soft men. That's the success for a successful marriage. She's a boss bitch and you're a limp dick dude with no masculinity. That was the whole gist of what she was pushing. So, and they tried to obfuscate one of the most important outcomes of the study was that traditional women and couples preferred traditional roles and reported satisfying sex life. So they obfuscated the whole fucking thing, and it's just BS. So take a gander at the article if you want to. I just narrowed it down because when you start reading it in there, you'll start seeing no defining what's considered household chores. They put in typical having manners as being benevolent sexism. That's really great, especially if you did it as a man. They didn't list anything that a woman does would be considered benevolent sexism. So this article, total shit. So this is funny. Again, I just another of my it's a boomer bitching, but I just wanted to. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, you can reach me at dyingtoretirepodcast@gmail.com. As always, I'm Doug. This is Dying to Retire, and I'll see you in the next episode.